ugly pictures there. James Graham,
Does not look good.
it doesn't look good for Jimmy Graham, the English import. Not only on the losing side of a grand final, but in some serious trouble with the judiciary. But we'll get to that later. Firstly, we'll look at the game. Many people thought it was a stinker. Not many people enjoyed it, but I thought it was a fantastic game.
It was a rugby league clinic.
I think maybe one side was the teacher, the other was the pupil. But yeah, I think so. I think even though there was no points scored in the second half, the defence of Melbourne was just a pleasure to watch.
Melbourne pretty much. The big game experience showed, and they taught the Bulldogs a massive lesson. And Cameron Smith, Billy Slater, Cooper Cronk, there's just no three better players.
Don't forget Brian Norrie. It's the big four now.
The big four with Brian Norrie.
Yeah.
I mean, Slater, Smith and Cronk have all admitted at training they work as hard as they do to just catch up to Brian Norrie.
Of course. But I was going to say, just when you mentioned Cooper Cronk, to me, he doesn't look like a naturally talented player. He looks like the kind of person who has spent hours and hours and hours and hours on the paddock just practicing.
He is too perfect, like in the big games, to be flawless.
Yeah, I don't think he hasn't got the Jonathan Thurston of him, the Todd Carney running game, etc. But
it's just so technically proficient.
Everything he does is just to the pinpoint. It's unbelievable.
Mm.
So, I mean, how can poor old Chris Keating? No disrespect to Chris Keating, but I mean, how can you expect him to match that when
get down to
Cooper Cronk does just when he put on Slater's try, Cooper didn't even look. He just threw it up and he knew Slater was going to be there.
You're not going to get an understanding with players like Slater, Cronk and Smith all have together.
It's amazing.
Uncanny. They've been playing together since like under 15s, under 16s.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, they're all Queenslanders, unfortunately. It would have been disregarding Norrie for a second. Imagine if Inglis was still there. Although he should really be playing for New South Wales, but we won't go too deep into that. Bulldogs, disappointing or they just outplayed?
Outplayed. I think people said the attack didn't really get moving, but that's because they were not allowed to. Melbourne just put a clamp on them.
I think Ben Barber was thoroughly outpointed by Slater. I think you can't argue Slater is the best fullback in the world.
Mm. And just the defensive reads that Melbourne make. Melbourne were ready for anything that the Bulldogs had to throw at them.
Yeah.
And the defensive plays that
Nielsen and Chambers in particular.
They did not fall for any of the decoy runners that the Dogs had, because I think one of the flaws in the plan is that they don't use the decoy runners enough. They go out the back too often, the Bulldogs. And Melbourne saw this, and always they never got caught up in the decoy runners, the forwards. And usually Frank Pritchard touches a few people on the way through. They were just avoiding him because they knew he probably wasn't getting the ball.
Well, to be honest, Frank Pritchard was thoroughly disappointing, I thought, on the day.
Oh, but he's got a history of not stepping up for big games, and people had thought that he'd sort of fix that this year a little bit.
Well, I thought that the moment which highlighted for me about not just Pritchard, but the Bulldogs overall, maybe they were tired, but I remember Ben Barber, the ball, a kick went dead by Melbourne. Ben Barber raced it, picked it up, raced back to the 20 to get a quick restart. And, it was... Ben Barber loves breaking defence, obviously. And there was breaking defence, boundless there. But his forwards were walking back to the 20 and he can't go unless his whole team's on side. I mean, in a big game, that's just suicide, really, isn't it?
I mean, but it wasn't like it was for 1 second. It wasn't for 2 seconds. He got there. The ref told him 3 times that his players weren't on side. And then he looked over to look at his players who were still walking back on side.
Even when they got told, they walked back. Frank Pritchard lumbering back, Sam Cassiano.
And, he sort of urged them with a few choice words.
And Ben Barber, Ben Barber was not happy. Slater, clear winner for me. Same with you.
Slater outplayed Barber in all aspects.
I reckon that the Bulldogs went out to possibly rattle Slater. They got in a bit of a scuffle over the sideline, and 5 minutes later, Slater was over. That's the sign of a real champion to me.
Well, with the little brawl that happened, Inu was talking after the game how he was saying that the Bulldogs seem to think that people target their players after they've dived over for tries. And the Bulldogs seem to think that doesn't happen to every player in the NRL, which it does. I mean, is there one player who doesn't get attacked by another player?
For the record, I think Slater's contest on Perrett's try was legitimate and fair.
Yeah, I mean, Slater has been known for sliding in a few tackles with knees after tries, and I think his history of that and their anger at people diving over their wingers and stuff after they've scored tries sort of just builds up in that moment because, I mean, Inu probably just saw Slater. Parrott likes to lie down occasionally, so...
Not at the Roosters, but when he was at the Bulldogs.
He's swapped jerseys now.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, Inu just saw that and probably just assumed, Slater's chucked the knees in, so a little push and...
And you know what? Inu was... You sparked a major controversy and... Well, we're going to be hearing about this for a while. We've just found out that James Graham has pleaded not guilty. I'm not sure how he's going to get...
Bit of a surprise
not sure how he's going to get around that one because from all...
You'd think he'd just say, I'm guilty.
Well, from all camera angles, from Billy Slater's ear, it looks like he did bite him. And it's not a pretty sight, is it?
I mean, if we go back to Brad Morin, 2009, bite on Tamana Tahu, he got 8 weeks for that. And that was a little, just a little nibble on the arm.
I think William
Zillman got 4 weeks for a bite on Jamie Simpson.
Yeah.
So I think Brad Morin was in 2007 and then Zillman was in 2009.
Yeah, I think that's right,
And, cumulatively that was 12 weeks for 2 biting suspensions. And at the moment the talk is that he'll probably get 12 weeks.
Yeah, there's no place for biting.
But both of those bites, which have been suspended before, were both on the arm. This one's being treated a bit more harshly because it's on the ear. And we all remember that Mike Tyson incident.
I don't think Graham's a aggressive or dirty player, to be honest. I'm not sure what he was thinking. Probably the heat of the moment.
He does like to play for a penalty.
The atmosphere of the game, the anticipation probably got to him. There's still no excuse for biting, is there?
Even if it's a brain snap, it
should be duly punished.
Yeah, there's no forgiving that. Even if it is a brain snap, I
also think Melbourne would handle it fantastically. I thought as well because they got. I think they didn't even get. It was a Bulldogs try, and then 5 minutes later Slater was over, and that from there 10 points up, it was going to be so hard to stop.
You thought it could have rattled Melbourne a little bit by not... they were expecting to get at least a penalty from it, or maybe get Graham 10 in the bin, but
I thought
they got referred.
I thought they could have... Bulldogs wore the try, and then once the conversion's been taken, a penalty to Melbourne halfway. Is that a possibility?
I think they can do that if there is an infringement after the try is scored, or I do believe that they can de-award the try if an active foul play goes on after the try.
I think what Tony Archer, the head referee there, said he when Slater made the complaint, the referees got together and they noted it. He goes, look, there's you can see the bite mark, you see the blood. We've noted that. Let the judiciary...
I wonder what Michael Ennis was thinking about when he saw that.
Yeah, I know. Let the judiciary sort it out because just from one replay we can't determine if he's actually bitten him. So... Smart refereeing by Tony Archer. I thought they had a good game as well. The referees after a heavy year of unrest with the refereeing race.
It was a solid game for the men in pink. There was no glaring controversies.
I thought both grand finals in the AFL as well. That the umpires and the referees performed well, which is a sigh of relief from pretty much every league fan.
Bill Harrigan's just wiped a little bit of sweat
Bill
off his
Harrigan
forehead.
can keep his job for another year, maybe half a year. We'll see how he goes next year.
One game isn't going to fix the problems that we've had with the refs this year.
Yeah,
so
we'll certainly dissect that.
I mean, you're happy when you see a performance like that from supposedly the 2 best refs of the year.
But exactly.
Let's hope the other 10 can get up to scratch.
We'll certainly dissect that before the first round of 2013 season. Melbourne, second legitimate premiership. Do you think that was a motive? They said it wasn't in the media, but do you think it was?
Oh, they're talking it down to the media, but how could that not be a motivation?
Yeah, I agree. It'd be hugely. They would have been filthy, I reckon.
Yeah.
And they've just shown it. Well, really, they're... Besides, I know that they cheated the salary cap. The premiership teams...
No doubt they're still feeling effects from this.
No doubt, but you can't now say that they're not... I would say, even now, they're probably the most dominant team of the last decade. I mean, you've got probably them. Manly have now shown how strong they've been. I mean, they've won 2 premierships in 10 years, which is a fantastic effort.
Yeah. I think the Broncos...
The Roosters in the early 2000s, of course. There's many teams. But just just to pick themselves off the ground after 2010. I mean, many predicted they're going down, down, down. Prices are down in the Coles ad, as they say, but
Let's not go there.
they've somehow dusted themselves off. Craig Bellamy's kept his head. Cooper Cron, Smith, Slater have led the way. And now the premiership winning, it's an amazing achievement.
But you think about it, they had all this time when they were a cheating team to get these systems in place, train with players and stuff, and they did bring up a few of these players, like Inglis was a junior, like not a junior at the club, but brought to the club when he was a junior, same as Folau. And
well, I think the problem is I think they would have been under the cap in 2006, or they may have started cheating the salary cap then, because Inglis and Folau and those players were on their first.
So good.
Well, they were on their first contracts then,
Yeah.
on $60,000-$70,000 a year, less than $100K.
What a bargain.
Well, exactly, and they'd probably signed on 2 contracts, and then they become Australian representatives, and that's when it started. That's when the rorting really started heating up. I think.
It must have been complicating when all these juniors first year were playing for Queensland and Australia.
Well, exactly, and every club in the southern hemisphere wanted a piece of them, but Melbourne Storm, I'm going to safely say now that they're the most dominant team of the last 10 to 12 years, and Craig Bellamy now is really. There was some doubts about him as with his credentials as a coach, but now you can't argue.
A few of those arose from his Origin stint, and I don't think Origin is the type of arena for Craig Bellamy. I think as a club coach, he's second to none.
I don't think it's been a environment for any New South Wales coach in the last 7 years. I mean, how can you beat
The best Queensland
the
team
best?
of all time.
I'd go as far to say it's probably the best team assembled ever in history. I mean, but probably discounting the Australian teams, of course, but overall, I mean, it's too powerful, too strong, and powerful. So Craig Bellamy...
You're going to lose a little bit of their aura next year, Queensland, though. I mean, lost Darren Lockyer this year, Petro's gone this year, but, I mean, they got some forwards to replace him with. They got Matt Scott.
Yeah.
They've got Ben Hannett. They've got Dave Shillington.
Shillington, who plays on the bench. He's a Australian representative who comes with the bench for Queensland. Slater goes down with an injury. In comes Ben Barber or Matt Bowen.
Got Greg Inglis there as well.
The halves go down. You bring in Cherry Evans, who's playing for Australia. Yep. But Melbourne Storm, the premiers for 2012.
Congratulations.
Congratulations, of course. Next year, they can back it up. Will be interesting to see.
They do lose a few. They've lost Todd Lowry. They've got Sikamanu going.
Jason Riles is going, I think, as well.
Jason Riles is retiring.
Is that Jason? No, Jamin Lowe's
retiring. And they've got Dane Nielsen going over to the Warriors. Sikamanu's going over to Penrith. And going to be a fair bit weaker next year.
Well, yes, but if any team's is going to come back from that, it would be the Storm. But yeah, congratulations to the Melbourne Storm, and also congratulations to the Bulldogs, who had a fantastic year, and I expect them to be back next year.
Yes, and in a little bit more signing news, Cronulla have finally finalised the contracts of Bo Ryan and Chris Huntington for 3 years.
Yeah.
And South Sydney have also extended the contract of
Greg
Inglis till the end of 2017.
The first $1 million man?
That's what's being said around towns.
Well, I think, to be honest, he is probably the one that he should have the tag of $1 million man.
I think he is one of the only players that deserves
one
it.
One of the only players.
I think with Cameron Smith, Cooper Cronk, Billy Slater, they're approaching their 30s.
They're turning 30 next year, yeah. So I think Inglis is 25 still.
Yeah.
So he's got, if all is well and good, at least 5 full seasons left, at least. Just disregarding injury. So it's good news for South Sydney.
We'll talk a little bit more about this after a short break.
Yeah, for sure.